Tim Walz just turned politics into a masterclass in controlled demolition. While others tiptoe around Trump's ego like it's a national monument, Walz walked in swinging a sledgehammer of common sense and left the whole circus trembling. It wasn't a debate, it was a public service announcement wrapped in a roast. Walz didn't argue or shout, he dismantled Trump's self-made myths one by one. The genius dealmaker image crumbled like stage props under the weight of pure, calm, cutting truth. Walz treated Trump's political theater like a never-ending high school talent show. The difference? One contestant grew up and learned to govern, while the other got stuck believing applause was a policy. Trump's presidency has played out like a reality show where drama always outweighs progress. Walz steps onto the stage, looks around, and wonders why the lights are still on when the performance ended years ago. Trump's administration feels like a blooper reel that never got edited out, and Walz turns it into a highlight reel on how not to run a country, sharp, steady, and unapologetically real. If you're enjoying this video, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon for more. When Walz talks about leadership, it's not loud, but it lands harder than any insult. He doesn't need to raise his voice because reality speaks louder for him. While Trump measures success by the size of his rallies, Walz measures it by real results, the kind that don't need a camera crew to prove they happened. Every Trump achievement feels like a marketing pitch, while every Walz success reflects quiet competence running circles around chaos. It's the perfect irony, the loudest man in the room, outclassed by the calmest one. Walz doesn't go for cheap shots, he goes for the truths Trump can't dodge. He reminds America that leadership isn't a performance. It's not about who yells the loudest, tweets the angriest, or brags the longest. It's about who gets things done without turning the job into a circus. Trump's presidency, for all its flash, mirrors one of his old casinos, glittering on the outside, bankrupt within, and destined to collapse the moment anyone checks the books. Walz doesn't mock it, he exposes it, calmly and completely. Trump calls himself a builder, but Walz proves he only builds drama. He's a construction worker of chaos, stacking bricks of outrage wherever cameras roll. Walz, meanwhile, works with steady purpose, fixing what's broken without the need for applause. His leadership isn't loud, it's lasting. The contrast feels cinematic, one man obsessed with headlines, the other quietly shaping history. While Trump performs for attention, Walz performs for results, and that difference speaks louder than any rally ever could. The brilliance of Walz lies in how effortlessly he exposes Trump's contradictions. Trump preaches law and order while wading through scandals, boasts of strength while trembling over poll numbers, and demands loyalty from a party that's mastered the art of applauding through gritted teeth. Walz doesn't need to insult him, he simply holds up a mirror. Every Trump rant becomes self-parody beside genuine leadership. Trump governs like a businessman whose slogan is, "I meant to do that," after every failure. Accountability, to him, is optional, responsibility, a conspiracy. Walz dismantles that mindset just by doing his job calm, consistent, and competent. He proves that real leadership isn't loud or flashy, it's effective. Trump wants fireworks, Walz delivers function. And in the long run, it's substance, not spectacle, that stands the test of time. Watching Walz dismantle Trump's brand of politics is like watching a teacher grade an essay written entirely in capital letters and self-praise loud, confident, and completely empty. There's nothing to critique because there's nothing there. Trump's policies read like scribbled brainstorms from a meeting that ended too soon, while Walz's leadership feels like the homework done right, clear, thoughtful, and grounded in reality. Trump built his political persona on chaos, but Walz turns that chaos into comedy and calm correction. His takedown isn't fueled by spite, but by precision. He exposes the canyon between self-promotion and self-awareness. Trump mistakes charisma for competence, while Walz quietly proves results are what define leadership. One performs for applause, the other performs for progress. And when the noise finally dies down, the contrast is undeniable. Trump sells spectacle, but Walz delivers substance that actually stands. What makes Walz's dismantling of Trump so devastating is his composure. There's no anger, no shouting, just a calm disbelief that slices deeper than rage ever could. He listens to Trump's leadership claims the way a teacher listens to a student explaining why the dog ate his homework, amused, patient, and unconvinced. Walz doesn't argue, he exposes. Every word he says echoes what the country's been silently wondering: when did noise replace leadership, and when did outrage become strategy? Trump's entire playbook is built on self-congratulation. When things go wrong, it's sabotage; when they go right, it's genius. Walz dismantles that illusion effortlessly, proving that leadership isn't measured in applause but in outcomes. Trump builds a brand, Walz builds progress. Trump demands loyalty, Walz earns respect. It's the difference between performance and purpose, between chasing headlines and making history. Walz highlights the irony of Trump's obsession with strength while revealing how fragile it truly is. Trump treats criticism like kryptonite, while Walz treats it as a tool for growth. One hides behind slogans, the other stands behind results. And in the end, Walz doesn't need to attack, he simply lets Trump's actions deliver the punchline. Walz exposes the irony in Trump's version of patriotism, a love for country that only shines when the applause is loud enough. His loyalty seems rooted not in service, but in spotlight. Walz flips that script with quiet humility, proving that true patriotism isn't about demanding devotion, it's about earning trust. While Trump performs nationalism like a Broadway act, Walz practices it through real policy and results. Trump's economic bragging becomes Walz's comedic playground. The self-proclaimed businessman who bankrupted casinos now preaches about fiscal responsibility. Walz's sharpest moments come when he contrasts Trump's obsession with self-image against the struggles of ordinary Americans. While Trump crafts social media stunts, Walz crafts solutions. One thrives on attention, the other thrives on action. It's not flashy, but it's effective. In the end, Walz reminds everyone that leadership isn't about being seen, it's about making a difference when no one's watching. Walz dismantles Trump's approach to crisis management like a teacher reviewing a failed science project, the kind that was supposed to demonstrate leadership but ended up proving what happens when ego replaces expertise. Every time Trump faced a problem, his method was the same: deny, distract, and deflect. It's so predictable it could be printed on a t-shirt. Walz, on the other hand, counters chaos with calm. His competence isn't loud, it's deliberate, precise, and quietly devastating. And that contrast alone becomes its own punchline. What makes Walz's roast sting even deeper is that it isn't theater, it's truth. Every line lands because it's rooted in fact, not outrage. He doesn't need to exaggerate or perform, he just connects the dots Trump left scattered across his own contradictions. The scandals, the blunders, the impulsive decisions, Walz doesn't just call them out, he dissects them. Each example builds a larger picture of a presidency that mistook noise for action and confusion for charisma. Trump's slogans sound powerful until someone asks for evidence. Then, suddenly, the empire of ego collapses under the weight of its own emptiness. Walz exposes how the man who branded himself a builder left nothing behind but division and denial. Trump's political empire turns out to be a house of mirrors, all reflection, no foundation. In Walz's hands, Trump's downfall feels almost poetic. The showman who promised greatness is outclassed by simple competence. The man who fed off attention gets silenced by quiet efficiency. Walz proves that intelligence doesn't need volume to win, it just needs results. In the end, Trump's legacy isn't the success story he sells, it's a cautionary tale about what happens when fame replaces respect. And Walz makes sure the lesson lands with surgical precision. The brilliance of Walz's destruction lies in its restraint. He doesn't shout, mock, or grandstand. He simply lets truth do the heavy lifting. Trump's flaws don't require exaggeration, they only need exposure. And Walz provides that exposure with surgical calm, peeling back the layers of performance until there's nothing left but reality. The self-proclaimed master of spin finally meets a man who refuses to play the game, and suddenly, all the theatrics look small. Walz doesn't need to dominate the room, he just holds up a mirror. And in that reflection, Trump's myth crumbles. Every exaggerated boast, every self-congratulatory outburst, every desperate attempt to rewrite failure as brilliance, Walz dismantles them not with anger, but with precision. It's not a takedown fueled by vengeance, it's a lesson in leadership. Walz doesn't run victory laps. He doesn't declare triumph. He lets the evidence speak. And in that silence, Trump's chaos collapses under the weight of its own noise. The man who once thrived on attention now drowns in ridicule. His empire of outrage meets its quiet undoing. Walz shows that competence doesn't need a spotlight, it creates its own. While Trump measured leadership in applause, Walz measures it in results. The difference is undeniable. Trump built an empire on bravado, Walz builds credibility on proof. One shouts, the other delivers. And history always remembers the latter. The cameras that once trailed Trump's every move now turn toward Walz, not because he's louder, but because he's better. The spectacle fades, the circus empties, and the crowd that once cheered chaos now finds comfort in calm. Walz doesn't out-yell or out-drama anyone. He doesn't have to. Competence carries its own gravity. It commands attention without begging for it. As Trump clings to yesterday's headlines, Walz quietly writes tomorrow's. The contrast is brutal, poetic, and final. The entertainer is outshined by the adult in the room. And that's the sting that lasts, not the mockery, not the jokes, but the realization that real leadership doesn't need applause to prove it exists. It simply endures.